we're off again. Fast and Furious. More importantly, how to draw fast and furiously. That's the goal of this particular video. And the reason I say that is because speed in illustration or in graphic design or in the art is a better way of you being able to express your thoughts visually quickly. If you're able to capture what you want to render quickly, you can move on to the next piece, which is always my goal. I'm always on to the next one. It's probably very similar to someone who's a songwriter. You create a song, you like it, you love it, and it's on to the next one. So I'd like for you guys all to have an insight to how I'm able to kind of capture, particularly, likenesses. If anyone's been following along, I've done several of these videos where I've done pop culture figures, and I've essentially, photo manipulated some visuals from online sources, and then did essentially an artful trace over of those, and tried to figure out a way to make them look really cool, but most importantly capturing the image of the character, the subject. So how do I quickly do that? This is how. I essentially, I find that perfect visual, or not so perfect, and whatever the case may be. And then what I like to do, love to do, is to, bend and twist and manipulate and alter and augment that photo so that it is not exactly the way the image is online. And sometimes that requires finding a body pose, and then finding a headshot, and then finding the headshot at the right angle, because you can imagine the character angle could be a huge factor in making it look natural. So on this particular piece of art, that head is from a different Vin Diesel. The body is from, I think the body and all the rest of it is more or less one shot. But it took me about 4 or 5 or 6 different head positions of Vin to get this right and composed properly. But once I did, there's where the speed comes in. Because the image is, all the lighting is kind of the way I want it. I think I maybe in Photoshop I maybe sort of bumped up or bumped down the contrast wherever need be, and then I imported it into Procreate here on the iPad, and it's on. And in order to get the speed, obviously, and again, I'm going to say it in just about every video, so please bear with me. You have to practice. You have to have also a sense of some of what these forms look like by rendering from life, or from a series of photos. But what happens in time, this is how your speed grows, is if you do it enough, you get to the point where you start seeing patterns, and you start seeing shapes, and you start seeing things that add up to what a pleasing visual is. All the hallmarks are there in the photo, particularly in this case. What I'm bringing to it is hopefully, the way I cropped it is interesting. The way I choose to shade it, this really high contrasty black and white shading. You can kind of see it there when I click the photo off. Oh, by the way, just so you know how, once I have the photo imported into Procreate, it comes in on its own layer automatically, so that's easy. Then you create a new layer on top, and then you select whatever brush or pen that you would like to use. I use the technical pen for this, and I've altered it quite a bit. And what I will do is I will definitely show you guys at some point I will show you guys a kind of a tutorial on how to alter your brushes and to give you kind of like the effect that I go for with my ink line. This kind of thick and thin, feathered brush stroke style, crow quill / brush stroke style. But in order to render it quickly, again, tons of practice, tons of observation of photos, and then also kind of studying art styles. Don't be afraid to find an artist that you really love and admire, and sort of kind of study what he or she is doing with their technique. Obviously the technique that I'm employing here is really comic booky. It's kind of a product of traditional illustration and comic book art. It's a product of, clearly, the limitations of the medium throughout time. You had to have that ink line in order to be able successfully reproduce comic books. And that thick, heavy, black, bold line really helps, particularly at the size in which comic books are produced at. And so all the artists throughout time, they quickly developed this sort of ink style that will convey, it conveys a sort of graphic realism in a lot of ways. There's certain ink techniques that you use to, that sort of says leather, as the case may be here, or that says plastic, or that says, some of the vinyl, or whatever it is. There are ways to sort of indicate that, and there are also ways to sort of, draw in shadow and spot blacks. That term spotting of blacks is where you see that heavy black, particularly behind, that back seat there, which you can kind of see a little better here with the photo off. And that black area over there to the right, where where maybe perhaps his legs and everything would be in the other part of the door, or maybe parts of the dash. But by spotting that heavy area of black, it really allows your eye to be focused towards his face. And hopefully you can kind of see that his face is really kind of the star of this. And that's why every line and every bit of shadow is intentionally directed to bring you towards his face and his facial expression, because that ultimately is the main thing. But in order to render this quickly, practice, study, and then of course be ready to confidently let the pull the trigger. That's that's maybe the key element. If I can leave you with nothing else in this video, is because if you're working digitally, or if you're not working digitally, it's just paper. If you're working digitally, it's just time spent with the app open and some trial and error. And you can see me here, messing with some splatter and trying to add a little bit of flavor to the drawing. This is just the experimental process. So anyways, to render fast and furiously, practice, study, and keep it rolling. All right? Anyways, SketchyGOichie, live your moment. Happy sketching, y'all. Don't forget to subscribe, click the bell icon for notifications, and don't be afraid to like. All right, guys. Peace.